Hi everyone, it's Karen Williams here, and today I'm delighted to introduce you to Sally Kay. Now, she is the author of Reflexology Lymph Drainage, and she is an internationally acclaimed speaker, award-winning reflexologist. She runs workshops all around the world, and her book shares her unique methodology. And that was developed and researched through many years of working with patients in cancer care. Now, Sally's got DVDs, she runs, as I said, workshops all around the world, but last year she got a bit stuck with her book. She'd been procrastinating for a while, and she was introduced to myself and the team, and we helped her to get to that end point that she was desperate to get to. And then she worked with myself and also the Libertas team to get her book published. So today in our interview, Sally's going to be sharing her story, her journey of writing the book, some of the highs and the lows, and a bit of inspiration to get you started. So thank you for joining me, Sally.
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for everything that you and the team have done to help me get my book finally published. And yeah, thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. So tell us about what inspired you to write your book and also to finish your book as well, because I know you got a little bit stuck on the journey.
Just a bit. Okay, so the book came about when I realised that this technique that I developed through clinical practice, through studying as a very mature student actually at the university in Cardiff, where I still worked in cancer care. And I was working with patients who'd had breast cancer and were left with breast cancer related lymphedema. And instead of, I wasn't qualified to do manual lymph drainage, but I understood the principles of it. So I thought, well, I'm going to apply the principle of that to the reflexes of the feet. And the magic thing was it gave a measurable reduction to the swelling. And as the lymphedema swelling goes, so do people's quality of life improve. Anyway, this work felt like something that really needed to be shared. So the first piece of research was done as part of my dissertation. And when I realized just how statistically significant the results were and the university, we were all really, really excited about it. Excited for reflexology and excited for the people it could make a difference to. And there was some talk at the time about, oh, there's a PhD here, you know, we need to do some more research. And actually, I knew in my heart I couldn't face any more studying or any more sort of academia. I'm not a natural at that. So I felt that, because there was also a lot of interest in other reflexologists who wanted to find out about it and who wanted to learn it. So I weighed it all up and I decided that I would be able to reach more people with the technique and help more people if I set about teaching others. And I thought, yeah, a PhD would be a whole lot of work. I'll write a book instead.
And that's not a whole lot of work at all.
Well, I felt for equal amount of work, and the book would be much more up my street than doing the academic stuff. So I did start writing the book then back in 2012. As well as the training really took off, and as people heard about it, and we also did more research, and as that got published, more people, and I started traveling, being invited to European conference, America, speaking at conferences, and also started to win some awards, which I never set out to do all this. I was just on this mission to share my work. That's what this is about. I've just been on a mission to share my work. So the book would go in fits and starts. It felt, mostly, it was really important that this is written and it's there for people to refer to. It'll help the technique not to become diluted in its efficiency over time. You know, I want the technique to retain its integrity and for people to be able to apply it, because done properly, it works every time. Anyway, so that's really was my motive for putting it in a book. And I had a couple of false starts, but it felt like my duty to put it in the book. It just felt like something I had to do. And then a chance meeting with an old family friend who I hadn't seen for decades, he introduced me to you. And then the rest is history, really. But I am really grateful to you and the team for helping me produce such a fantastic piece of work, which I'm thrilled with.
Good.
eventually.
So that leads me to my next question: is what types of challenges did you face on your journey, both before you were introduced to myself and also afterwards? Because I know it's not been plain sailing even since we met in July last year.
No, mostly looking back, most of my challenges were mine. They were personal challenges, and they were about belief. Fear is another big factor. Fear of putting it out there, fear of it not being well received, fear of not being good enough, all those sorts of personal challenges that I've worked my way through over the years. And you get stuck. I got very stuck. I would say I'm not a natural writer. I don't read a lot, so nothing that was going to give me the advantage when it came to writing a book. And yet I still had to share this work. Before I met you, I was trying to write in a way that wasn't me. And it didn't sound like me coming out of the pages. And that was one of the first things that you pointed out to me after we had our initial meeting, was that I had all this work. And when I spoke about it, it sounded very different. I needed to be singing from the pages and not trying to write in some sort of academic way that wasn't me at all. So I was making things hard for myself. It was much better once it just sort of began to flow. But the other thing was, I had a very clear idea of how I wanted it to be. It needed to be clear. It needed to be accessible. I wanted full colour. I wanted the best quality that I could possibly have. And I really wasn't prepared to compromise myself in any way at all on that. I know it led to the book being a little bit more expensive because of production costs and colour and everything else. But I am thrilled with the end product.
Well, it's kind of what I would call a coffee table book, isn't it? It's square, it's colour, it's beautiful. There's loads and loads of illustrations and images in there as well. For me, it's just really it helps people through the whole process of doing it, doesn't it? Because that's what it's there to do. It's to be able for you to, I suppose, to leave a legacy, to be able to share things, as you say, so other people can actually use all of the research you've done over those years. Yeah,
without it becoming diluted along the way, because ultimately that's probably what would happen. But now it's there in the book, and it's all laid out for people to see, and people have been able to follow it. So the exciting thing is, I've sold books and sent them myself as part of my, I wanted to do signed copies and pre-orders, which I did, and I sent books to every continent. And people have fed back to me that they're able to use the technique and they're able to help people, and they've made a difference. And so that just makes all of it worthwhile.
And the fears you did have, that you were, when you were struggling, and the fears and the belief that you did have, how have you managed to work through that, and what's happened since?
Well, it helped that the book was so well received. It was being so well received, and that just makes me think, well, that was ridiculous. I even thought like that, but it was how I was feeling.
Oh, absolutely. And many people feel like that, Sally. You're definitely not alone.
Yeah, and then you feel like an imposter. There's a little voice in you going, you writing a book? Who are you to write a book? But I've waded through it, and finally got there with help.
So it leads me on to my next question: is how did the team and I, obviously myself, Louise and Sam, how did we help you to get your book done and out there?
Well, first of all, the face-to-face meeting with you was really helpful, because immediately I warmed to you and I thought, yeah, this woman is going to be able to help me. You knew what you were talking about. And I remember our meeting, we had a really great chat, and it was such a relief to feel, yes, this person is going to have, I left our meeting feeling all fired up and ready to go. And it was good having the deadlines. So with a deadline of, the next mentoring call that I'd have with you, certain targets. One of the best things that you said to me was, because I was very stuck at the beginning, stuck in the introduction. And I remember you saying to me, well, just leave it and come back to it. I thought, yeah, actually, why didn't I think of that? And I think it ended up being the very last thing that I did. And a bit like a research paper when you do your abstract at the abstract. So you do the whole paper and then you just pick the bones out of it. So yes, I you know, I'm very good at putting hurdles in front of myself and making things difficult for myself. And the book was no exception.
Well, I know we had a very brief conversation before I pressed record, actually, before I realised I needed to capture some of this, that you said you could have easily bailed out at any stage if you knew that you didn't have someone supporting you each step of the way.
Oh, I could have, and I had previously bailed out. But because there's quite a big financial investment in working with you, but I have to say, money well spent. Because of the way that was done, where you pay up front and you sign a contract, yes, it's a big investment, but it also meant that I was completely committed. Had I been paying some sort of monthly payments over a 12-month period, there were times, particularly at the beginning of the year, when I could have just cut my losses and bailed out. But I couldn't do that because I was committed, financially committed in quite a big way to the project. But it was worth it. And then when we moved on to the editing, working with a couple of different editors who I didn't meet, but they both brought a different skill set to the table. In fact, were there three? Maybe there were even three editors who went through my stuff. But because there were a lot of images and graphs and, you know, figures and numbers and pages and illustrations, I guess that was an extra challenging layer for the team. So you just brought the right person in to deal with that. So it was fantastic. And then when we were ready to go on to the design stage, and my son came with me actually to meet Sam, your book designer, and we had a really good meeting with her too. And afterwards he said, yeah, she gets it, Mum, she's going to do a really good job. And good. Sure enough, she did. So between you all, you've managed to capture my work, even the feel of the book, and I still haven't got bored with feeling the book. I have my lovely copy here, and all of it. I just love it. I'm thrilled.
Well, there are so many moving parts, aren't there, to writing a book? And I think people, you know, I had another interview with somebody earlier today, actually, and, you know, we were having a conversation about it's almost like you do it, you upload it to Amazon, that's it. But actually, there are so many moving parts, and you don't know what you don't know at the end of the day, do you? No. And just being able to know what to do, when to do it, and just be nudged every so often, it just helps. Right, this is what we need next, Sally. You know, don't worry about anything else, just that.
Yes, and that made all the difference, because it's clear, you know where you are, you have a time frame. And even when I was overloaded with busy with work commitments, you were flexible on that. You know, you were very accommodating, as was the whole team. It was very good indeed.
So obviously it was an investment in time, obviously an investment in money as well. But what results have you had so far from publishing your books? It was back in the summer, wasn't it, that it went live?
It was the end of June.
End of June, yeah. I thought it was around about that time. So, yes. So what's happened since the end of June?
Since the end of June, well, I've been back to Australia. I've been down under. In fact, I just got back last week, but that was already planned. But it was thrilling because of the way we've published with the self-publishing model. You can order books to be delivered anywhere. So I had some delivered in Western Australia, in the Perth area, and another load delivered in the Brisbane area, which meant that I didn't have to travel with them. They were there for me. And it was just the most fun signing them and handing them over to people. And some of the people who'd already ordered the book via Amazon or Booktopia, I think, in Australia is the big one. They also brought their books with me to sign, so it was just very exciting. It was very good. But mostly, as I said, it was never about money doing this. No. It was always about having the book there for people to refer to. So, and there have been some people who've messaged me to say, "Oh, I've read your book. It's fantastic." And they say lots of lovely things. But now I'd like to do your course, which I wasn't expecting, but that has happened. And even for people who've done the course, because it's clear and well laid out, it's a nice refresher for them as well. So I'm, because there was a Kindle edition too, which was good. You see, that's the thing. If you mentioned, oh yes, just do the work, upload on Amazon. There was no way I could have managed that. absolutely no way, because there was obviously so much more to it, but you don't realize it until you get to that stage. So it was really good having somebody, Sam, to set up all the online, set up the self-publishing, because I know working with you and your team, you do have the option to publish under your label. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to do it under my... I was only ever going to write one book. And the best
How's
it
that
could
going
possibly...
then?
Well, dare I say it, I already started writing another one.
Absolutely. But so going back to your success, I know one of the things that I was delighted with is that you sold 925 copies of your book before you even launched it, which is bloody good going, considering obviously, you know, it's not a cheap book to produce, it's not a cheap book to buy either. I thought that was amazing. I know you did an offer when you launched it, but how did you achieve it?
Well, just through demand. You know, for the last few years, I've been getting messages from people. How's your book coming on? You know, will your book? Is there a book? So people knew it was coming. So rather than the book being something I was going to build a business around, it was something that needed to support what I was already doing. So there's a big Facebook group all about the work, and social media, and contact within the reflexology community, which I guess is a fairly small community really compared to other professions and other industries. So that's how. Just
and then
social networking.
We were talking
really.
Before I pressed record, we were talking that you think you've sold around about 2,000 copies so far.
Yes, I think so.
Which again is pretty good going. And as you say, I know it wasn't about the money, but you know, when people have read it and they've connected with you, and I think the thing about a book is you really connect with the author as well. When it's well written and you know, you share your story, you share your research, and there's so much of Sally in the book, people develop that connection, and then automatically they're going to go on, you know, for those people where it's right, they're going to go on and do one of your workshops.
Yes. Or hopefully they'll be able to just use it, do the workshop, use the technique, and it goes right the full circle right back to being able to help people with breast cancer related lymphedema. Although since that, you know, that's where it came from, that was the kind of history of it, but we found that the technique is making a big difference to clients with all kinds of inflammatory conditions, other types of lymphedema, so primary lymphedema, which is a genetic condition, whereas secondary lymphedema is second to, you know, accident, injury, surgery, or trauma of some kind. But just the most wonderful thing is what it does to the quality of life of those affected. And the other thing about it is, because it's reflexology, it's done on the feet. People only have to take their shoes and socks off in order to receive it. You get in a lovely, comfortable position. You have your feet done. It's not a deep, heavy treatment. It's gentle. It's relaxing. It's very soothing. And then to get up from that and have a measurable reduction in swelling is I never get bored of it, you know.
That's the reason why you wrote it, I know, because obviously, you know, when you're writing a book, of course you want to, but you know, the only way you can get it, you can actually make a difference with it is by selling it, giving it away, and actually getting it out to more people. But actually, I know the result you want was to change people's lives and make lives better for people.
Yes. And also, I mean, reflexology has been around for thousands of years, but in Western medicine, we do come up against this sort of, there's no evidence to say that works, there's no evidence to say that works. I do like to remind people there's not much evidence to say it doesn't work either.
Oh yeah, true.
But, you know, this was something measurable, because the data you can get from it is quantitative as well as qualitative. And together it puts quite a strong case forward, because there isn't really anything, there's no miracle cure. And this isn't a cure, but it really does enable people, and it gives them hope. That's the best thing. It gives people hope.
Brilliant. So Sally, what advice would you give to other people who are embarking on the book writing journey? That's a big sigh.
I know. I would say work with professionals and try not to put hurdles in front of yourself. You know, if you've got something that you want to say, something important that's important to you to share for whatever reason, whether it's non-fiction, whether it's fiction, try not to hold back. The other thing that I've just remembered actually was the idea of it having to be perfect before I handed it over to you. And for permission for it, not, when you gave me permission for it not to be grammatically correct, for it not to be perfect, that's what the team were there to help with. That's like lifting a lid and just helps it flow. So each time I build up to another hurdle and then drag myself over it with a nudge from you and the team. Yeah. So,
I think a book is never perfect. You know, a book is just one
No.
of those things that, you know, you can keep tweaking. You know, I often have conversations with clients about this. You can keep tweaking, but there has to be a stage when you go, it is actually good enough, and you can write another book. And actually, you want it to be as perfect as you can be. Certainly that is important, but there has to be a stage where you go, actually, I know it's going to make that difference, and just being at that stage to be able to let go and let it do its work.
And I think working with a team gives you permission. You know, somebody says to you that at this point, and you think, oh yes, actually I could go on and on and on. And I think had I not worked with you, I'd still be tormenting myself with it now. For sure I would. I'd be torturing myself with that, yes.
Yeah. You're glad you did it then. I think
I'm
that's
so
kind of a
glad
given.
I did it. And so are the people whose lives it's touched, and the people who've got their copies. And I mean, it's hard to know how many actually, I have a rough idea how many I've sold through the website, but because the way Amazon and online does it, you don't get your percentage until 3 months after. So I don't really have any idea of how the figures.
We get reports, and it just takes so long. I certainly find with ebook figures anyway, because obviously I get figures for everyone who publishes under Libertas, and you know, there's 90 days before anything comes through, and obviously the reports, I'm obviously dealing with more than some dozens of authors. I do find that once a month I sit with my head in my hand going, okay, let's try and work this out.
Well, I did have a go the first month, the first 3 months, the first time they sent me a statement, but it was all quite complicated because there's US dollars, Australian dollars, euros and sterling. And then there's published books and ebooks. And in the end, I just decided I was going to trust the system. that would be that.
Trust the system. It makes it easy when you're doing it just for yourself.
Yes, yeah. And now I would like to work with you again to make it into an audiobook.
Fantastic. So we're going to be talking about that shortly. I think audiobooks is one of those things that is great, because not everybody wants to read a book. We want to read we want to listen on the go these days. I've certainly started listening to podcasts more and more this year, obviously doing quite a few of my own podcasts around the launch of my new book. So, you know, I think people want it in bite-sized chunks, and that's what I know we're going to talk about later. And having done my own as an audiobook, I know what it's like, and I kind of know some of the pitfalls as well.
Yes, I'm sure. Well, some of the reflexologists that I meet who've been on the training are visually impaired.
Right.
So it would be a really good thing for visually impaired reflexologists to have as well. So I just want to make it accessible to everyone. So
fantastic.
My reason.
So before I ask you how people can get hold of your book and get hold of you as well if they're interested in doing any training with you, have you got any other things that you want to share with people, or any other tips, a piece of advice that you nuggets or anything else?
Don't delay, just crack on. Get on with it, and it'll all just work out. And I must say, it worked out. It exceeded my expectations in the way it was received too. There was no attention to detail spared. I know I was a bit, I knew how I wanted it to be, but nobody tried to make me compromise myself in any way. Work with professionals. Don't delay.
Fantastic. So how can people get hold of your book? So hold it up again. You've got it there in front of you. So,
I have it here with me, and it is my finest hour.
So how can people get hold of a copy and order it from you or directly from Amazon? I know if they search for you on Amazon, they'll find it.
Yes, they'll find me. But if you order it direct from me, you get a signed copy, and you get a lovely bookmark as well, which has also got the reflexes and things on the back. So it's my pleasure to put one of those in. I pack it all up in lovely tissue paper and sign it too. Or else it's available on Amazon, it's on Kindle. But if you want to find out more about the work, there's a website, it's reflexology lymphdrainage.co.uk. There's also a Facebook group, again, Reflexology Lymph Drainage, RLD, and that's for a public as well as non-reflexology, for non-reflexologists as well as reflexologists. Mm-hmm. Because one of the fantastic things about that is we find that within the community, somebody might know someone who's maybe been through some surgery or has developed lymphedema, and they want to connect. And with a group, there are more than 6,000 people in this group, and so often you can find someone who lives near someone who knows someone who can connect for some RLD reflexology. So it's a really good, there's a wealth of knowledge on there as well, so you can use the search icon and find how other people have been using the technique and building it into their practice.
Brilliant. And thank you for bringing this book out, and thank you for making the difference that you're making, because I know, as you say, so many people are benefiting from it. So if you hadn't, actually said, right, I'm going to do this, it wouldn't have happened. I think, I really commend you for actually pushing through some of those moments where it felt blooming hard.
I know, and mostly self-limiting beliefs. That's what it is, self-limiting beliefs. So if you're thinking of writing a book, just tell that little voice to be quiet and let you get on with writing the book.
Some great advice, Sally. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Karen, and thanks again to you and the team.
Thank you.